Hi, everyone. I want to go over some of the background for this chapter, chapter 5. You'll still read it. You're going to read about the things they created, the artwork, and everything else. But this is some background that they don't fill in. The book is so small, it doesn't have a lot of information for you. I don't see how you get a full understanding with the book, but that's what they gave us. So the book is about monotheism. It's the first time they're going to have one God. And these are the faiths that come out of there are the Abrahamic faiths. Because Abraham is the first guy who's going to be the first monotheist, or the first guy who believes in one God. And he's from Ur. We'll talk about that in a second. So monotheism is one supreme creator who proceeds and creates the universe systematically, or what we would call God. Okay? This is going to be an ethical monotheism, or monotheism. The belief in a system of behavior and belief that derives from a sole omnipotent God, an all-knowing God. And this means, like the Greeks, had a lot of gods, but the gods never told them how they should act or what would happen if they do or don't. Okay. Here, the God does. It's an agreement, how you're supposed to act, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. Okay. This is the first time that God is a source of and guide for an ethical life. So, this Abraham's monotheism is the oldest religion in the Western world, and it'll turn into Judaism. Judaism dates back to at least 3,000 years. Abraham is the parent of the three dominant religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Each springs from the other. Judaism is more than a system of beliefs. It exudes a sense of identity. It's a nationality. The Hebrew Bible is the Old Testament. Now, there are a lot of different Bibles out there. This is going to be basically the King James Bible, the newest version of the King James Bible. The Bible has been written many different times. The original was written in Hebrew and Aramaic, then it was changed into Latin. And Abraham of Ur is who we're speaking of. He's from the city Ur. We saw him in Mesopotamia, or saw that in Mesopotamia. He's Abram, actually, and he comes Abraham. He's out in the fields, he's working. God comes to him, starts talking to him. This guy's talking to him. They get to know each other. God builds his trust. And he tells Abraham, I'm God, and I'll be your God if you be my people. And Abraham trusts him. And I'm sure it took a while. And so Abraham's job is to go and get people to follow. And of course, he gets some. He gets the family, he gets friends, he gets people like that, but everybody doesn't. And they don't believe him. They don't trust him. And they kick him out of Ur. He has to leave. Before that, we know he's married to Sarah, who we know that her real name was Sarah. He has two sons by this time, Ishmael with her handmaid, because Sarah couldn't have babies for a long time. After Ishmael is born, then Sarah gets pregnant with Isaac. By this time, Hagar and Sarah have a fight and falling out, and Abraham kicks Ishmael and Hagar out. We don't see Ishmael a lot after this. We see him in the Bible when he comes back to his dad's funeral, and we don't see him much. Where is he? Did he just disappear? No, we're going to see him later because he's going to become a part of the history of Islam. Okay. And the rest is just the fathers and sons, and we're not going to worry about that too much because we just don't have time. It's very interesting. Much, much later, they're all going to settle here, the land of Canaan, Abraham to Moses. Kind of thought I took those out, but you can see all these. We're not going to do that. But here's the agreement God makes with Abraham. I will be your God and you will be my people. This is Genesis 17:7-8. He's like, cool. So they leave, they go out, they come over to Egypt. That's the story. The idea was they helped build the pyramids. Unfortunately, DNA tells us, no, that's not the truth. We know that the people who built the pyramids, had all different DNA from all different places. It wasn't just Jewish people, but we don't care. That's not part of our story right now. We still know they left Mesopotamia and traveled. So they leave Canaan sometime after 1700 before the Common Era, and they enter Egypt, kept as slaves as we know it. We don't know facts. Around 1300, Moses leads them out of Egypt. It's called the Exodus. He gets to Sinai, Mount Sinai, and as most of you know, he goes up the mountain, um, and he gets the Decalogue. And I love this because it's a gift. It's kind of not funny, kind of is, because it was an episode of The Simpsons where Homer is dressed up as Moses and he goes up the mountain. It takes a long time. God gives him the Ten Commandments. The Decalogue is the Ten Commandments. It's a covenant, it's an agreement. Moses comes down the mountain, and all of his people are praying to fake gods. And he gets so upset he drops the Ten Commandments, and they're in stone. And he has to go back up and tell God he broke them. And that's why I think it's funny to have them flash it. Kind of weird. Very odd sense of humor. And then they start to lead out again, but Moses gets in a fight with God. He doesn't finish. I think a man named Joshua finishes him out of here. The Decalogue is the Ten Commandments. And they basically said, for those of you who do not keep these commandments, your children will suffer to the third and fourth generation. There was no promise of heaven and no fear of hell. It's just that I'm going to punish your kids. Okay. By the first millennium, before the Common Era, the Hebrews were back in Canaan. They followed Joshua. The kingdom of Israel was established. The social order was very interesting because it's social and familiar, prescribed by the original covenant. There was loyalty for protection. The kings protected their people and the fathers protected their family. You can see the kings. I really thought I took all this off. Saul, David, and Solomon. We can't go into great depth on these. There's Solomon's Israel. I'm pretty soon they're going to divide that up. And then you can see this mosaic. And this is one of the things that they're going to make are these mosaics. And you're going to see them in there. And you know these because we did some for Rome. And they have some images, but they don't have images of man, no images of people. There's going to be some later because they use them for teaching. This horn is to call people to prayer. Here's like the menorah, the door with the cloth over it. I can't remember the name of the sword, but very cool. You'll see tons of these. This is underground. All of these faiths at one time had to go underground, especially in Rome. You can go to Rome and visit the underground, and why can't I think catacombs is the name? And you can see the Jewish catacombs, the pagan catacombs, and the Christian catacombs, because everybody had to hide at once, because all religions were banned at once. All religious books were banned at once, at one time, not all the same time. And this is wonderful. And this, you can look right now, it has, and I say no graven images, but then you can see the images right here. And they're doing it to, and this isn't beautiful, I don't know why, but you can see they did have some, and they're telling the story, especially older stories, some of them you wouldn't recognize, the story of Esther and things like that. And this is very, again, this is a Jewish synagogue, but this right here, you'll see something very similar like it in an Islamic mosque. So here the kingdoms divided Israel and Judah. Long stories behind there. The book of Job, you can read a part of it in your book, and it raises the question of unjustified suffering in a universe governed by a merciful God. You have a very small part in your book. And the bottom thing is Job says, if you're God, why are you putting me through this? Because basically Job is being used as a pawn. The devil says, I know I can make him do all these things and he will not, follow you. He will not be faithful to you. And of course the devil was wrong, but Job lost everything and he was miserable and he questions God. And God's answer is interesting. He says, if there is no heaven, so here's the question. It raises the question of unjustified suffering in a universe governed by merciful God. If there is no heaven and thus no justice after death, how can a man's good suffering be justified? Interesting. Okay. So that's the part on the Hebrews. I'll be back with more.